Who is going to get relegated from the Premier League at the end of the 23-24 season? Hello guys, how are we all doing? Welcome back to yet another video. As I've already said, today we're taking a deep dive into the bottom end of the Premier League and seeing who's going to be staying in the Premier League and who's going to be coming down to the Championship at the end of this season. And there's only 3 games to go. Before we get into the video, get your comments down below if you are feeling brave. Predict the 3 teams that will be relegated and the team that's going to just about stay up come the final day, most likely at this rate. Make sure to drop a like, it's free to do. Let's go for 1,000. 1,000 likes, we can do that with all of your great support. It takes 2 seconds, so please hit the thumbs up button and make sure to subscribe. It's free to subscribe and your support has been absolutely fantastic. If you are one of the viewers that's watching this video that hasn't already hit the subscribe button, then you need to think about it. Hit the subscribe button, it massively helps the channel out and we're trying to push to 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year. With all of that said, let's get into the Premier League relegation battle. So then, after the most recent weekend's results in the Premier League, we can start drawing some lines. Here we can say commiserations to Sheffield United as they are the first team relegated, even with 3 games to go. The writing has been on the wall for some time, but it doesn't make it any easier for the Sheffield United fans. We will welcome you back to the Championship with welcome arms, and to be honest, I think you've got a very good chance of getting back at the first attempt. We must also say a massive congratulations to Brentford, Everton, and all of the teams upwards, as they are now mathematically safe from being relegated, and that leaves us with 3. Nottingham Forest, Luton Town and Burnley. With 3 games to go, there's 2 points separating them. We have 2 relegation spaces to fill at the end of the season, and is it going to go to the final day where Burnley are at home to Nottingham Forest? Oh my god. So then, let's really start to focus in on these 3 teams and try and work out how this has happened. How we've got 3 teams on a really low amount of points, but one of them's actually going to stay in the Premier League. It could be a record low amount of points to stay up with. Well, first things first, the teams down the bottom this season, which has mainly been comprised of the 3 teams that have come up, have just not been great. In their defence, I always make the argument that the Premier League is getting stronger year on year, and we could get to a point in the future where it is just 25 points to stay up. Maybe even in 15 years, you just need 20 points to stay up. When you've got teams like Man City and Arsenal that are that unbelievably strong, they barely ever drop any points. Teams down the bottom are going to have to scrape the barrel to get what they can. But at the same time, a lot of the teams down here haven't done themselves many favours. For most of this season, we've been in a position where Sheffield United and Burnley looked doomed. They looked like there's no way out for them. Luton looked the best of the 3 teams that had come up, but still maybe didn't have enough to stay up. And then you had Everton and Forest and maybe Brentford as well, not having great seasons, but looked like they got more than enough to stay up. In fact, Everton were around mid-table for some parts of this season. When you throw into the mix a couple points deductions for Everton, and a points deduction for Forest, and a drop in results for Forest, plus a couple of decent results for Luton here and there, and a late resurgence from Burnley, you get this. Now, like I said, credit to Everton and credit to Brentford, because there was a time where those 2 didn't look particularly safe, but they have done enough. Forest have remained above the bottom 3, but just don't seem to be getting anywhere. You can put that down to some bad performances, which there certainly has been. You could also put that down to bad decisions, which I do think there has been a few of, and obviously they've voiced that opinion this season. But the reality is, Forest need results however they can get them, and they're just not moving anywhere. We could have a final run in where they all kind of flop up and they don't really pick up any more points and it just kind of stays as it is. I mean, we could have Forest surviving on 27 points or Burnley surviving on 27 points, which is just incredible. Looking at it from a Luton perspective, I think if you'd have offered Luton Town fans this position at the start of the season, most of them would have taken it. And that's not to belittle Luton Town, by the way, who I do think have been a decent addition. They certainly have learnt some lessons this season, but they were the quickest to acclimatise out of the 3 newly promoted teams, and maybe even caught a couple Premier League teams off guard and threw a few teams off. We've got to this point now where they all have a chance with 3 games to go. We'll come on to the fixtures in a minute. As for the form, over the last 10 games, Forest have picked up 6 points, Luton have picked up 5 points, but Burnley have picked up 11 points. Is it too little too late? Well, looking at the table, you'd say no, but we're going to come on to the fixtures where they certainly are more favourable to Luton and Forest. The big thing that will keep getting brought up is the fact that Burnley have Nottingham Forest at home on the final day. And if you look at it through a Burnley perspective, As long as they're within 2 points of Forest going into that final day, they can leapfrog them. If it gets to 3 points or more, they can't catch them. And with 3 points, the goal difference is 12 different. There's not going to be a swing of 12 goals in 3 games here for Burnley. So then, these are the fixtures. And let's start with Forest. It's in their hands. If they win 3 games out of 3, they are staying in the Premier League. Unless the Premier League turn around with another points deduction out of nowhere, which, to be honest, given the Premier League's record this season, wouldn't surprise me. I don't even think they know what they're doing sometimes. It seems like they're making it up as they go along. But that's a different matter. As for Forest, it's away to relegated Sheffield United next, and then at home to Chelsea, and then on the final day, as we said, it's Burnley away. If I'm a Forest fan, the game I would be most nervous for is Burnley away, but they might not have to be if they can open the gap over Burnley to 3 points over the next 2 games. Now, just skipping past Luton Town for a second here, we'll come back to them in a minute, but looking at Burnley's next 2 games, it's Newcastle at home and Spurs away. And then, of course, it's Forest at home on the final day. If you compare Forest and Burnley's next 2 games here, it's certainly a lot more favourable to Nottingham Forest. Now, yes, Burnley are the team in better form out of these 2, but fixture difficulty is a massive thing in the Premier League. Sheffield United are relegated, so it could be one of those where they've not got anything to play for, Forest turn up, and it's an easy win. That might sound a bit too good to be true. I'm sure Sheffield United will still be playing for pride, and as far as Sheffield United are concerned, this is one of their more winnable games this season, so I'm sure they'll be trying to drag Nottingham Forest down with them, especially when you think back to the fact that Nottingham Forest beat Sheffield United in the playoff semi-finals last year on their way to getting promoted. It's always interesting between these teams. Chelsea at home is an interesting one. It really does depend on what day you catch Chelsea. If Chelsea are at their best, I'm sure they would win. If Chelsea are at their worst, Forest could absolutely steamroll them. Let's not forget, Nottingham Forest did win 1-0 away at Stamford Bridge earlier this season. The problem with Chelsea is they're just that inconsistent. I just don't have a clue. So, if I'm a Nottingham Forest fan looking at those next 2 games, I think 3 points is very achievable. In fact, I'd say maybe they need to get more than that. 4 points is probably the minimum they need to get. Actually, thinking about it, I could see Nottingham Forest getting 6 points from these 2 games. It's definitely possible, and if they do that, they're putting a lot of pressure on Burnley to get 2 wins from Newcastle and Spurs, which is obviously a big ask. If I'm a Burnley fan then, looking at this, I think Newcastle at home is difficult, but winnable, if you see what I mean. I think with the home advantage, it's one of them where Burnley might do it. Now, Spurs away, yes, Spurs can be a bit inconsistent, but I think Spurs should get that one over the line. Maybe Burnley go there and get a draw. Maybe they can get 4 points from these 2 games, but that is a big ask, and it's all down to who can put pressure on who. If Burnley go out and score 4 points, then Forest have to score 6. If Forest score 6, then Burnley have to score 6. The next couple games are absolutely massive for Nottingham Forest and Burnley. Let's talk about Luton Town next. Now, Luton, we are not ignoring you. We were just focusing on the fact that Burnley play Forest on the final day and the fact that Burnley need to match Forest in the next 2 games. When you look at Luton Town's fixtures in the next 3, I'd describe them as quite alright. Everton at home, West Ham away and Fulham at home. Now, by no means are any of them easy. This is the Premier League, for Christ's sake. But if you think about it, Luton Town have a lot to play for. Everton at this point don't. Now, yes, Everton are the team in much better form. Is Sean Dyche a manager who would just accept the Everton players to give up now? No, I'm sure he'll keep pushing them. But you've got to admit, once they've not got anything to play for anymore, it does change things a bit. Now, Luton have already done a double over Everton this season at Goodison Park, beating them in the league and the FA Cup. Now it's at Kenilworth Road, they'll be licking their lips. Then it's an away trip to West Ham United, which certainly does look the most difficult game here for Luton Town. But if they can score 3 points against Everton in the first one, then maybe there's not a lot of pressure to go and get a win at West Ham. One thing I will say, though, is comparing Forest and Luton's fixtures, I do think it's very likely that Luton need to win their next 2 if they want to come out of the bottom 3 before the final day. Otherwise, on the final day, I think they're going to need to win and hope Forest slip up. On the final day for Luton Town, it's Fulham at home, and it's another one of those weird ones where it's a team with maybe not a lot to play for, but in the Premier League, they can just simply turn up and ruin your afternoon without anything to play for themselves. So, like I say, looking at the fixtures there, I don't know what to think. Burnley are the team in the best form, but they're the team with the hardest fixtures. If you're a Burnley fan, you just need to match Nottingham Forest. If you're a Forest fan, you need to shake off Burnley. If you're a Luton Town fan, you're obviously concentrating on what you're doing, but you've still got an eye on the other two. As much as it would be painfully nail-biting for you fans watching that are Forest, Luton and Burnley fans, you've got to say it would be unbelievably fascinating if it does go to the final day, because we could find ourselves in a position where a Forest win keeps them up, a Burnley win keeps them up, and a Forest-Burnley draw might keep Luton up. Burnley fans will be just hoping to take this to the final day, and who knows, I mean, there's only a couple games to go. You can call them cup finals at this stage and put everything into it, because right now, with how close it is, they have all got a chance of staying up. When we spoke about the Premier League relegation battle during the last international break, I did say it looked close between these three and Everton. Everton have since gone on to stay up. I did say I think Forest stay up, and I think I'd still stick with them being my favourites to get over the line here. But what I must say is I didn't think it would get this close. This season, as I said, we could be looking at a record low amount of points to stay in the Premier League. I think when I spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, my hunch was 31 or 32 points to stay up, but I was more thinking along the lines of 31. Looking at the fixtures then and the points these teams are on, I think I will stick with 31 points to just get you over the line. So that would be 5 points for Forest, Luton would need 6 points, Burnley need to go and get 7 points. I just have a feeling that it will be about 31. It could be lower. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these teams really fall over the finish line, and as we said, it could be 27, 28 points. The bar could suddenly shoot up if we find that Forest and Luton win their final 3 games all in a row. Then you need to get to 35 points, which Forest can just about do. Luton can only get to 34. I don't think that's going to happen, but what I will say is, as bad as some of you might think these teams have been this season, they've all got a really good chance, and when you get to this stage, you can maybe just put in that extra 10%. Your team might have more to play for than the opposition's, and you might get more interesting results in the final run in here. Like I say, guys, I'll put it to you. Get your predictions down in the comments. It's always fun to have a look at your thoughts. How many points do you think you need to stay up, and which 2 teams do you think out of these 3 are going to be relegated, and which one's staying up? Get your comments down below. If you've enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like. It's just a friendly discussion about a fierce relegation battle. Make sure to drop a like as we're going for 1,000. Make sure to subscribe. It's free to do, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Peace out.